Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to be transforming the butterfly Shelly top to the dress. Some of you have seen it on my Instagram page. This dress was entirely inspired by the top that I made last week. For those who haven't yet watched the butterfly top tutorial, you can go ahead and check the description box below. I'll be leaving the link behind. Both the patterns have written patterns and they are available on my Etsy shop. So if you'd prefer the written pattern, then you can go ahead and purchase that, and that's also a way of supporting me. And we are going to be learning how to make this dress. For those who watched the top tutorial, I'm very sorry, we are going to do it all over again so that we can achieve the dress and also help our sisters and brothers who haven't yet tried the top, so that they can achieve the same exact look as ours. So if you liked the top, thank you so much for watching, and this is a very new tutorial and I can't wait to share it with you. So for the materials, you will need a 24/7 cotton yarn by Lion brand, or this is a substitute yarn. If you can access this, you'll be using a double strand, but if you can get 24/7 cotton, it's 100 grams, then you'll be using a single strand for this. If you have any medium weight yarn, you can go ahead and use that. If you have fingering yarn, go ahead and use 2 strands. And you also need a pair of scissors, a 3.75mm crochet hook. If you don't have this, if your stitches are tight, then you will go for a 4mm crochet hook. If your stitches are loose and you don't have a 3.75, then go for a 3.5mm crochet hook. I'm just giving you options so that you can get a comfortable option for yourself. And then you also need a darning needle and a measuring tape. This time we need a measuring tape because we need a dress that is body hugging. And yeah, let's get into the video. So we are going to start off with a slip knot. This is my slip knot, and we are going to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that counts as 1 chain here, and then 3 chains. The 3 chains up count as a double crochet, so this is an extra chain. So we're going to go into that extra chain with 3 double crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. So we shall have a total of 4 double crochets if we count the chain 3 as one of the stitches. So that's a total of 4 double crochets. Then we are going to row 2. So for row 2, you're going to chain 3, turn your work, go into the second stitch, skip this because this is attached to the chain, double crochet into the next stitch, double crochet into the next, and double crochet into the last stitch. So you'll have a total of 4 double crochets still. Then we are going to go to the next row, which is row 3, chain 3, turn your work, and we are going to skip the very first stitch because it's attached to the chain, go into the second stitch with a double crochet into the next, and double crochet into the last stitch. So for the first 3 rows, we have a total of 4 double crochets on each. Now for row 4, we are going to start doing some increases. So chain 3, turn your work, and you're going to go into the very first stitch with a double crochet. So that means the very first stitch has 2 stitches, then 1 stitch into the next, 1 stitch into the next, and then into the last stitch you're going to place 2 double crochets. So 1 and 2. So for row 4, we are going to have 6 double crochets, and then we're going to row 5, chain 3, turn your work, and we're going to do the same exact thing as row 4. Increase on the ends of the row, so 1 double crochet in the very first stitch. Then in the middle stitches you're going to place 1 double crochet in each. Then into the very last stitch, which is this one, we are going to place 2 double crochets. So that is row 5. And now we're going to row 6, chain 3, turn, place 1 double crochet in the very first stitch. So we have 2 double crochets here, and then 1 double crochet into each of the middle stitches. So this is what we have. At the end of row 6, you should be having a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 stitches in total. So we're going to row 7, and for row 7, you're going to chain 1, turn your work, slip stitch into the very first stitch, slip stitch into the second stitch, slip stitch into the third, and chain 3. So this will be our very first double crochet here. Go into the next stitch with a double crochet into the next, double crochet into the next, and double crochet into the next. So we want a total of 5 double crochets on row 7. So we have the chain 3, which counts as a stitch, then 2, 3, 4, 5. So those are 5 double crochets. Then you're going to chain 3, turn your work, and double crochet into the second stitch, the third, fourth, and fifth. This is the very last stitch. Make sure you go into it with a double crochet. So we have a total of 5 double crochets for row 7 and 5 double crochets for row 8. And this is the body of the butterfly. This is the part that goes in the middle of your torso, in between the breasts. And now from here, we are going to make a chain of 150. So these are the straps that are going to go behind the neck, around your neck. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make a chain of 150. So I have my 150 chains, and at this point I'm going to cut my yarn. So that's the very first strap that's attached on this side. We want to balance that by creating another strap here, but this time we are not going to be attaching it here and then making it outwards. We are going to make it separately. You're going to chain 150. So these are my 5 chains. So I'm done with my 150 chains here. And now we're going to be attaching this chain on this corner here. So grab your body of the butterfly and go into the very first chain, which is a chain 3. Go in there with a slip stitch like that, and now you're going to slip stitch into the next stitch, which is the second stitch, and then you're going to chain up 5, slip stitch downwards, slip stitch into each and every chain of the chain 5 that you just made. There you go. And then you're going to slip stitch into the next stitch, and then slip stitch into the next stitch, and then chain 5 and slip stitch downwards on the chain 5. So 1 slip stitch into each and every chain downwards for a total of 4 times, because the very first chain is the turning chain. So you have 4 slip stitches and then slip stitch into the very last stitch, and that's it. You're going to chain 1 and cut your yarn. So that's it with the body of the butterfly. You should be having something like this. We are going to get rid of these loose ends. We are going to weave them in later, but for now you should be having the midsection of your butterfly finished. So we're going onto the wings of the butterfly, and the wings are made of shells. You're going to make a slip knot, or whichever way you prefer to attach your yarn onto the body of the butterfly. You can just tie or whatever you prefer. So you're going to identify which side you want to be the right side of your work. I feel like any side is okay because they literally look the same. So you're going to go onto one of the corners. I don't know which wing you want to start with, but either here or here, one of those 2 corners. So I'm going to attach my yarn here in that corner. So after attaching my yarn, I'm going to be weaving in this end as I work. So you're going to chain 3 and then place a total of 5 double crochets in that very first double crochet space. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So at this point you should be having 6 double crochets because the chain 3 counts as one of the stitches. So far we have 6, the chain 3 and then the 5 double crochets you've placed in this double crochet space, and then place a total of 5 double crochets in the next double crochet space. So in that space here, the next row. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So there you go. And now so far we should be having a total of 11 double crochets here. And now you're going to chain 1 and go into the next row, which is row 4 from the base. This next row, and you're going to place a total of 7 double crochets in that space. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So just follow the instructions because the stitches are going to be so packed. So far I have 4 stitches. I want a total of 7 in that space. These are 6 and then the 7th. So let me explain. The very first 11 double crochets will cater for the upper wing. You can see this is where the head of the butterfly is, and then the 7 double crochets are going to cater for the lower wing. So we are going to row 2 of the wing. You're going to chain 3, turn your work, and now I'm going to get rid of this because I've already hidden it into the stitches. So you're going to chain 3 and this counts as a double crochet, and then you're going to go onto the next stitch, not this one but this one. You're going to go in there with 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2 more double crochets into the same stitch. So that is a shell. The shell is 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets for now. I'll tell you when to change that. Then go into the next stitch, which is this one. You can see the next stitch is this one, that one. If you split the stitches, you're going to go in there with a front post double crochet. So front post, you go behind the stitch and pull it up like that, and then work your normal double crochet like that, and then go into the next stitch, which is this one, that one, and do 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 more double crochets, all in the same stitch. And then the next stitch, which is this one, that one, go in there with a front post double crochet. So the front post double crochets are trying to create the ridges, those lines that you see along the butterfly wing. So after your front post double crochet, go into the next stitch with 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 more double crochets. That's what you should have. And then you're going to go into the very last stitch before the chain 1 space with a double crochet. This time not a front post, we're going in with just 1 plain double crochet, and then you're going to chain 1, double crochet into the next double crochet. You're going to skip over the chain 1 space and double crochet into the very first double crochet after that, and then place a shell into the next stitch. So 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, all in the same stitch, and then front post double crochet into the next stitch, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets into the next stitch, front post double crochet into the next, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets into the next stitch, front post double crochet into the next, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets into the next, like that, front post double crochet into the next stitch, and now we have 2 stitches left, so we are placing 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets into the second last. So your work should be like really packed right now, but that's okay. This is the foundation of the wing. You should be having something that looks messy like this. Then in the very last stitch after your last shell, you're going to place 1 double crochet into the very last stitch, like that. So right now we have something like this, but it will become flat later on. So this is row 2 of the wing. This is what you should have. So there is a space which had the chain 1 space. I told you this is the lower wing now, and this is the upper wing. The lower wing should be having a total of 3 shells, and then when you skip over the chain 1 space, you should be having a total of 5 shells. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Make sure you have that. After the chain 1, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 shells, and then on the lower wing you have 1, 2, and 3 shells. So once you have that finished, you're going to row 3 of the wing. You're going to chain 3, turn your work, and we're going to repeat row 2, but this time every front post double crochet will get a back post double crochet, so that we keep these ridges popping out on one side. You're going to, after you chain 3, you're going to jump into the chain 1 space of the first shell, with 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, like that. And then now we're going to that what was a front post double crochet on the previous row, we are going to place a back post. So for the back post, you go in from the back, grab it, and then work your normal double crochet. And that is going to create that ridge popping out on one side. We won't have it popping out on the inside of the top. So at this point, I've determined which side is the outside part of my top. This is the outside and this is the inside part of my top. So after your back post double crochet, you're going to go into the next shell with a shell. So 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 more double crochets, like that. And then back post double crochet into the next previous front post double crochet. So I don't know how best to explain that, but every front post double crochet from the previous row will get a back post double crochet on this row. So place a shell into the next shell. So the shells are placed into the chain 1 spaces. Keep note of that. After your shell, which is 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, you're going to place a back post double crochet, and then a shell, and then a back post double crochet, and then a shell. We're going to do this until you have a total of 5 shells because we are on the upper side. So we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 shells. And we are going to go into the very last stitch, this one, before the chain 1 space, with a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet into the next double crochet, skip over the chain 1 space, like that, and then place a shell. So now we've crossed over to the lower wing. Place a shell in the very first shell of the lower wing, and then back post double crochet, and then a shell into the next shell, then back post double crochet, and then a shell into the very last shell. I told you the lower wing has only 3 shells. And then after your very last shell, you're going to go into the very last stitch with a double crochet. And that marks the end of row 3 of the wing. And now we're going to row 4. For row 4, you're going to chain 3, turn your work, place a shell in the very first shell into the chain 1 space, of course. That's where we place the shells. Then you're going to place a front post, because now we are on the side where the ridges are popping outwards. This side we don't have ridges. When you're on this side, when you're working on this side, you place back post double crochets. When you're on the right side of your work, you place front post double crochets so that you can have those ridges popping out on one side. So you're going to place a front post double crochet, and then you're going to place a shell in the next shell, like that, and then place a front post double crochet, and then place a shell into the next shell. And now we've reached this point, and this is not a front post. We don't place a front post here on the edge of the wing. We place 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet into the next. So we've crossed over to the upper wing. You can see this, where the strings are is the upper wing, and then where this base is the lower wing. So at this point you should be seeing your work is speaking for itself. You see where to place the front posts, the back posts. The ridges are more pronounced. So you're going to place a shell into the very first shell of the upper wing. And then place a front post double crochet, then a shell into the next shell, then a front post double crochet, a shell into the next shell, then a front post double crochet, and we're going to repeat this until we get to our very last shell. Just continue doing that until you get to your very last shell. So I have my shell here, and then front post double crochet, and now I'm on the very last shell, and I'll place 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2 double crochets into the chain 1 space of the previous shell, and then I'll go into the very last stitch with 1 double crochet. So this is what you should have. And now we're going to row 5 of the wing, chain 3, turn your work. We are going to just do the same exact thing. Just now every front post double crochet will get a back post double crochet. That's what you should know. So like right now I've placed my very first shell, and now I'm going to go into the next stitch with a back post double crochet because I'm on the wrong side of my work. And you're going to continue this until the end of your row. So I'm going to film this on camera so that you don't get confused. Back post, shell, then back post. So we're on the upper wing. That means I'm looking forward to having 5 shells. So shell, and then back post. So far I have 4 shells, 1 2 3 4, and then this is the very final shell of my upper wing, like that. And then I'll go into that double crochet before the chain 1 space with a double crochet, chain 1, and then double crochet onto the lower wing, and continue the same exact process. Back post, and then the last shell into the very last shell. So after this you're going to go into the very last stitch with a double crochet. And now this is what your work should look like on the outside, and then on the inside we have this. We don't have ridges on this side. So we are going to row 6, chain 3. We're going to repeat the same exact process, but this time with front post because we are on the right side of our work. So shell, you're going to chain 3 and then a shell into the very first shell, then front post double crochet, and then shell, and then front post double crochet, and then shell, and now we've reached the midsection of parting the lower wing with the upper wing. So we're going to go into the double crochet here with a double crochet, and then we're going to chain 1 and then double crochet into the next double crochet, skip over the chain 1 space. So there's that chain 1 space that keeps moving around. We shall see its use later. And then we are now on the upper wing, and we are going to just continue the same exact process. Don't forget, this is row 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it's row 6, and we are doing front posts because we are on the outside part of our top where the ridges are found. So we are going into our very last shell with a shell, and then into the very last stitch with 1 double crochet. That's what you should be having. This is the outside part of our work. This is the upper wing, this is the lower wing. And now we're going to start doing something different. You're going to chain 3, turn your work. This is row 7, and you're going to place 3 double crochets. Now the shells have changed. The shells are now 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. Keep that in mind. So 3 double crochets, chain 1, not 2, and then 3 more double crochets. That's what you should be having. And then back post double crochet because we're on the wrong side of our top, and then 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets into the next shell, After this, you're going to place a back post double crochet. So since we're on the upper wing, we are going to do it until we get a total of 5 shells. So 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and 3 more double crochets. And then back post double crochet, and then a shell into the next shell, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets, and then a back post double crochet, like that. So far we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and we want a total of 5. So we are going into our very last shell with 3 double crochets, chain 1, and 3 more double crochets. And then you're going to go into that stitch here before the chain 1 space and place a double crochet there, and that marks the end of row 7 of the upper wing. And then you're going to chain 3, turn your work, right now we are going to be abandoning the lower wing. We shall come back to it later. We are going to first work the upper wing. So we are going to continue with our flow of the pattern. So 3 double crochets, chain 1 and 3 double crochets, like that. Then front post double crochet. I think by now you know where to place a front post and where to place a back post double crochet. So a shell into the next shell, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. So from row 7 of the upper wing onwards, a shell is 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. It's no longer 2, chain 1, 2. And then front post, a shell into the next shell, front post double crochet, a shell into the next shell, and then front post double crochet, then a shell into the very last shell. Now we're going to be alternating between row 7 and row 8 of the upper wing until we have a total of 6 rows of the extension of the upper wing. So far we have 2. We are going to continue working 5 shells of 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets, and then the middle stitch until we have a total of 6 rows. So far we have 2. We want a total of 4. We are going to alternate between row 7 and row 8. So chain 1, place a shell into the first shell, but remember row 7 was an odd row, so it was worked on the wrong side. That means we placed back posts. So go ahead and work your total of 6 rows of the upper wing extension, and then I'll meet you back at that point when you're done with that. Alright, so I have my 6 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the extension of the upper wing. But I want to be at this point on the lower side of the upper wing. So that means I'm going to do one more row, which will be row 7. So we are just going with the flow of the pattern. Row 7 of the extension is going to be back posts. Back post and shell, back post and shell. And the shell is 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets. So I'm just speeding through this. Okay. So far I have 3 shells, and I should be having a total of 5 shells. Okay. Then back post. Then into the very last shell, we are going to place a shell. Like that, and then you're going to go into the very last stitch with a double crochet. So this is what you should be having right now. This is the outside part of your work, this is the wrong side of your work. Now we are on the lower end of the upper wing. So we are going to be doing something different because now we want to create decreases so that we close up the wing. So you're going to chain 3, turn your work, and into this shell, this time we're not going to place a shell. We're going to place a total of 4 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's all, and we are going to continue with the pattern of the flow of the pattern normally. So front post and then a shell, which is 3 double crochets. So everything else remains the same. The only change is here at the beginning. So let me continue with my row. So this is the very first row of decreases. So I'm in my very last shell and I'm placing a shell, and I'll go into the very last stitch with a double crochet, and then we are going to row 2 of the decreases, chain 3, turn your work normally. We don't decrease on the upper end of the wing. This upper end, we leave it the way it is. We just go with the flow of the pattern. We always reduce on the lower end of the upper wing. So after your shell, back post, and then shell, I'm going to be recording this whole part because it can get a little bit confusing. And then back post, then shell, and then back post, shell, and after this very last shell we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, this wasn't a shell, these were just 4 double crochets. We're going to go into this front post double crochet with a double crochet, just a plain double crochet. That's all, and that marks the end of row 2 of the decreases. And then we are going to row 3, chain 3, turn your work, and we are going to repeat this row. Remember, we started with, instead of a shell here, we placed 4 double crochets. Like that, and then continued with the flow of the pattern. So front post, then shell, then front post, shell, front post, shell, so I told you the upper part of the upper wing it doesn't get any decreases. We just work normally. So this is what you should be having. And then we are going to row 4 of the decreases, chain 3, turn your work and work normally. So shell, and then back post double crochet because we're on the wrong side, then shell, and then back post, shell, and then this is not a shell, so that means we are going to stop on this stitch. We are going to just go in there with a double crochet and then chain 3 and turn. So you see what that is creating? It's creating the edge of the wing. So after you chain 3, place 4 double crochets into the next shell and continue to work normally for your row. Front post and then shell, and the shells are going to keep reducing until you no longer have any shells. I'll be showing you. I told you I'm going to be showing you the whole process of how to do this part. And then a shell, and then 1 double crochet into the very last stitch, chain 3, turn your work, shell, so we're on the wrong side, that means we do back post double crochets, and then shell, and then this is the double crochets, the 4 double crochets. That means we stop here with a double crochet, chain 3, turn your work, then 4 double crochets into the next shell, and then front post double crochet, then a shell into the very last shell, and then 1 double crochet into the very last stitch. So your rows are getting shorter and shorter. This is what you should be having. And then you're going to chain 3, turn your work, place a shell here, chain 1, 3 double crochets, and these are 4 double crochets. That means we stop our row on this double crochet. We're going to go in there with a double crochet, chain 3, turn your work, and then go into this shell, because now we only have 1 shell left, and we are going to go into it with 4 double crochets, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then go into the very last stitch with a double crochet. That's what you should be having. So you can see that uniform edging, and then from here you're going to make a chain of about 200. I don't know how you prefer to make your chains, but I'll go with my normal of making chains, making straps. So chain 3, double crochet into this space, chain 3, double crochet in between the 2 double crochets below, chain 3, double crochet in between the 2 below, and I'm going to make sure I have about 50 to 70 segments of this, and by segments I mean these sections. So far I have 4. I'm going to go ahead and make a total of around 50. If you want longer, then you can go to 70. So before I continue, the upper wing is finished at this point. If you're a bigger size, then you may consider checking out the pattern on Etsy. I explain how to make the top bigger. This is the upper wing. It's all done, and I'm going to be doing my strap of 50 segments. Alright, so I have my 50 segments of my strap. I'm going to chain 1. If you want it longer, I told you to consider about 70 segments. So this is what the upper wing will look like. So you're going to attach your yarn in this corner, the top part of row 6 from the base, 1 2 3 4 5 6, but in that upper corner, and we are going to chain 3, plus 5 double crochets. We are literally just repeating the same exact process as the left wing, as the right wing. So 1 2 3 4 5, and then 5 double crochets into the next double crochet space. So that will bring us to a total of 11, because the chain 3 counts as a stitch. So we have our 11 double crochets here, and then you're going to chain 1 and place a total of 7 double crochets into the next row, which is row 4 from the base. It will get a total of 7 double crochets. So these are 3 4 5 6 and 7, and then you're going to chain 3, turn your work. This is row 2, and for row 2, this is where we are going to determine which side is the right side and the wrong side, just by the direction where the ridges face. So we are going to go into the next stitch with 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets like that, and then we would have done, if you're following the same exact process as the right wing, we did a front post double crochet, but this time you're seeing we are on the wrong side of our work, and you have to be careful with this, because it's very easy to mess it up. So since we are on the wrong side of our work, and this is the row that's supposed to determine which side is the right side and the wrong side, so this is the wrong side, so that means we are going to do back post double crochet into the next stitch, and then into the next stitch you're going to place your 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2 more double crochets, and then in the next stitch we are going to do a back post double crochet, because we are on the wrong side. Remember, that's why the ridges are now going to start popping out on the right side of our work, where these other ridges of the right wing are. So after this you're going to go into the next stitch with 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, and then go into the last stitch before the chain 1 space with a double crochet. So let me show you how that looks like on the outside. You can see the ridges are already starting to form on the right side of our work. Make sure you don't mess that up. And after this you're going to chain 1 and then double crochet into the very first stitch, and then 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets into the next stitch, then 1 back post double crochet into the next stitch. So for the upper wing we want a total of 5 shells. This is our second one, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets. So we're literally just repeating the same exact process as the right wing, just the only difference is the direction of the ridges. So once you identify that on the second row and make it clear that the ridges will be on the right, on the correct side, then you're going to just continue following the same exact process as the right wing. So I've already determined that, and the moment I'm done with that, you're going to rewind your video to the right wing and follow the same exact process as you did for your right wing. If you made any changes while I was working, make sure you also do them on the second wing so that we balance our sides of the butterfly. So I have 2 stitches left, and I'll go into the second last with a shell, which is 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, and then go into the very last stitch with a double crochet there. So remember this point when we had that mess, but it turned out to be this. So in case you have this, don't worry, just go ahead and work your wing. It will become flat later on. So you're going to continue with your left wing. So a small tip is every time I say you do a back post on the right wing, when you're working your left wing, that will be a front post. It will just be the opposite. So go ahead and work your second wing. So when you finish both wings, you should be having something that looks like this. Both the upper wings are done, and then this lower part should look like this. Now we're going to start something different. We're going to start creating the coverage for our lower dress. So this is the right side of my work. I can tell by seeing these ridges popping out on the outside. We don't have that going on here. So what I did was to close up this space by about 5 to 6 rows in the middle of the butterfly, so that I create some coverage for my top. This is the same exact thing that I did for the butterfly top. So after that, you're going to turn your work to the wrong side, and we are going to stitch up the lower extensions. So this is what we have. You're going to push this tail of the butterfly down, and we are going to stitch these rows together, this side and this side, to form one lower panel instead of 2, because now there are 2. We want to join them into one. So I'm going to place 2 single crochets into each and every row. So this is 1 and 2. And then go to the next row, insert your hook, and then on the next row of the other side, and place 2 single crochets in the double crochet space, and then continue doing that all the way down. Okay, so this is my very final row, and I've placed my 2 single crochets, and you're going to chain 1 and cut your yarn. So you're going to cut your yarn here. We shall weave in the tails later. So when you turn your work to the right side, you should be having something like this. This is the tail of the butterfly. It should be there. Then these are the straps that are going behind your neck. These are the ones that are crossing over to this side. I'll be attaching a photo here so that you see how it's supposed to be at the back. And now we are going to start on our lower extension. So for the lower extension, you're going to attach your yarn in the very first double crochet of the lower wing. So that is this one. You're going to attach your yarn there in that double crochet, and we are going to chain 3. From this point onwards, we are going to have the shells as 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochet. So we are placing a shell into the very first shell, so place 3 double crochets, chain 1, and 3 more double crochets. Okay, after that, remember we are on the right side of our work. That means we are doing front post double crochets. So front post double crochet in that next double crochet, and then a shell into the next shell, which is 3 double crochets, chain 1, and 3 more double crochets. And then you're going to place a front post double crochet into the next double crochet, then continue that, 3 chain 1, 3 more double crochets into the next shell. So we are done with this shell here, and now we have this place where we joined the 2 sides together. We are going to go into it and place a front post double crochet like that, and then continue normally, shell, front post, until the end of the row, and your row will end at this point here, this double crochet before the chain 1 space that separates the upper wing from the lower wing. So let me go ahead and do that, and then I'll meet you guys back at that point. Alright, so I've placed my last shell here, and I'll go directly into the last double crochet that I had showed you with a double crochet. So that's our row 1 of the lower extension, and now we are going to row 2. You're going to chain 4, turn your work. That chain 4 counts as a double crochet, chain 1, and then we are going to go into this space between the shell and this double crochet, and you're going to place a total of 4 double crochets. Like that, and then directly go into the next shell with a shell. So into that shell in the chain 1 space and place a shell, which is 3 double crochets, chain 1, and 3 more double crochets. Okay, and then this is a double crochet, but we are on the wrong side. That means we are doing back post double crochets in those ridges. After that, you're going to continue with a shell, and then back post, then shell, back post, like that until the end of your row. I'll meet you at this point when you've done your very last shell. So I've gone all the way across, and I've placed my very last shell in the last shell here. So you can see this last shell on this side also got a shell, but then we had 4 double crochets in the space between the shell and the double crochet here. So we want to balance what's on the other half onto this other half. So after your shell here, you're going to go into the space between the shell and the double crochet, which is the chain 3 here. We count it as a double crochet, and you're going to place a total of 4 double crochets, and after your 4 double crochets, you're going to chain 1 and place 1 more double crochet. That's exactly what we did on this side, because we did chain 4, which counted as 1 double crochet, chain 1, and that means we end with chain 1 and 1 last double crochet. So this is row 2. So we are going to row 3. You're going to chain 4, which counts as 1 double crochet, chain 1, turn your work, and then in this space here, the chain 1 space, you're going to place a shell. So 3 double crochets, chain 1, and 3 more double crochets. Okay, after your shell, you are going to, this is the right side of your work now, we are on the right side. So you're going to skip over the first 3 double crochets of the 4, and then into the 4th you're going to go in with a front post double crochet. Yeah, and then you're going to go into the next shell with a shell, and into the next double crochet you're going to place a front post double crochet. I think you know why we're doing front posts, because we are now on the right side of our work. When we are on the wrong side, it's always back post. That's the only way to keep these ridges popping out on only one side. So you're going to go across your work like this until you get to this shell, that last shell, because this is not a shell. So when you get here, I'll meet you at this point. So I've gone all the way across and I've placed my last shell in the last shell. And now you're going to place a front post double crochet into the very first double crochet here. And then skip over the 3 double crochets and then place a shell in the space between the last double crochet and the 4 double crochets. So in there, you're going to place a shell. So this is 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and 3 more double crochets. And then when you're done with your shell, you're going to chain 1 and place 1 last double crochet into the same space. So that is row 3. And row 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, you're going to chain 4, turn your work. Row 4 is literally going to be the same as row 2. The even rows are the same and the odd rows are the same. So remember, for row 2, we started with a chain of 4 and then placed a total of 4 double crochets in this very first space. So that's exactly what we are going to do. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And after this, you're going to jump straight into the next shell with a shell. 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 more double crochets. And after this shell, you're going to go into the next double crochet with a back post double crochet. Now we are working on the wrong side of the dress, so that's why we're doing back post double crochets. Okay, so I've made it across to the very last shell, and I'm placing my very last shell into that shell like that. And now we have this space, so we are going to go into that space directly with 4 double crochets. Okay, 4 double crochets, chain 1, and 1 last double crochet into the same space. You can place it into a stitch if you want, but I prefer into the space. Whatever you want is okay. So this was the end of our row 4, and row 5 is going to be the repeat of row 3. So you're going to chain 4, turn your work. Now we're going to place a shell. You can see this happened at row 3. We chained 4 and then placed a shell into this very first space. So place a shell into the very first chain 1 space. And after your shell, right now we are on the right side of our work. So we are going to go into the 4th double crochet of the 4 double crochets from the previous row. You're going to skip over the 3 and go into the 4th with the front post double crochet. You can see that happening at this point on row 3, and we are going to continue and do the same exact thing that we did for row 3, which is here. You do the front post and then place a shell into the very last chain 1 space, then chain 1 and place 1 last double crochet. So we are going to alternate between those 2 rows until the lower part of our top measures our hip measurement. So you're going to pull this. If it can stretch to your hip measurement, that's where you're going to stop. Keep in mind when stretched, because we want this lower part to be body hugging. So don't stretch too much that the stitches are going to open up so much. Just stretch it a bit, something like this. So right now I'm at 17 inches. I want a total of 40 inches. Let me say you're making a dress for someone who is 40 inches hip measurement, or the biggest measurement on the lower part of their body. So for me, I'm considering hip of 40. That means when I stretch this, it should go up to 40. So that means I still have so many rows to do downwards. So let me attach a photo of what I had for the blue dress that I posted on my Instagram page. You're going to alternate between these 2 rows until you get that measurement, hit your hip measurement, and then you're going to stop. But you want to stop on the row that has a shell first and ends with a shell. That means we're going to stop on an odd row, because the odd rows are the ones that start with a shell and end with a shell. You don't want to stop on a row that starts with 4 double crochets. So keep working these 2 rows and stop on an odd row. So I hope I'm clear on that. And then I'm going to be demonstrating the next part with another color so that we can finish up. So since this is a demonstration, it's not actually the dress that can fit a person, but I'm just giving you the whole concept, the whole idea of how to achieve one that can fit you. So once you get your hip measurement, let me say this can stretch up to about 22 inches. So that is not for an adult, definitely, but I'm just selling the idea. So once you get your hip measurement, I've placed my very last double crochet here. You're going to turn your work to the wrong side and bring these 2 corners together like that, and you're going to slip stitch into this space between the shell and the double crochet. Make a slip stitch there. So we've turned the rows into rounds at this point. So you're going to slip stitch, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and that counts as a double crochet, and then go into the very first shell and place a shell, so after your shell here, you're going to go into the next front post double crochet and front post double crochet, and then go into the next shell with a shell, and that's the flow of this round. It's shell and then front post, shell and front post, and from this point onwards we are going to be working on the outside part of our work. Make sure you keep that in mind. We are no longer working on the wrong side. We are just going to keep working in rounds until we get the length that we need. So you're going to go all the way around, and I'll meet you at this point after making your very last shell. So I went all the way around, placing shells and front post double crochets, and then after your very last shell here, you are going to go into the top of the chain 3. So the chain 3 is here. You're going to go into the top and make a slip stitch there. That's the end of round 1. So I told you from this point onwards we are going to be working on only this side. We are no longer going to turn to work on the wrong side of our work. So after this, you're going to slip stitch into the next stitch, slip stitch into the next stitch, and then when you get to the chain 1 space, you're going to slip stitch into that space, and then you're going to chain 3, and that counts as our very first double crochet. But then we are in between a shell. That means we want a shell, so we are going to place 2 more double crochets to make a total of 3. Chain 1, and then three more double crochets to finish up our shell. So we have our first shell finished for round 2, sorry. We are no longer working in rows. So after this, you're going to go into the next double crochet with a front post double crochet, and then go into the next shell with a shell, and then you're going to go into the next double crochet with a front post double crochet, go into the next shell with a shell, and you're going to repeat this all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end of this round. I'll meet you at this point and I show you how to wind up round 2. So when you go all the way around, you have your last shell into the last shell. You will go into this double crochet with a front post double crochet like that, and then you're going to slip stitch into the very first chain 3 on top of it and make a slip stitch. So that brings us back to this point where we were before starting round 2 of the extension. So that means we are going to just slip stitch until we get to the middle of our shell, and repeat the same exact process for round 2 until we get the length of the dress that we want. Remember, this is a demonstration, that's why it's a bit small, but I was just illustrating and trying to explain the concept, the general concept. So after that, you're going to keep working your dress until you get the length of the dress that you want. So you will be having something like this at the back. This is where your butt is supposed to start from. Your back is all out. So if you feel like your back is too open, you will close up a few rows until you get enough coverage for your back area. Something like this, so that your butt doesn't show. If this goes beyond your butt, then you're going to have to close up a few rows upwards. And you can do that by making single crochets all the way up to that point where you want your dress to stop at the back. So that's basically it. I hope you guys liked this tutorial. I'll be attaching photos of the finished piece here, and yeah, that's the transition of the butterfly top into the butterfly dress. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, make sure you subscribe to my channel and give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.